Well, talk about going from 0 to a million. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. I'm bad. I do it too. Have it on me and keep it on me at all times. Another fun fact. Here we are to do a breakdown and review of chapter 220 of Fortnite of the Apocalypse, which is known as the Signal to Rise Up. And here's the thing. This is going to be a weird review in like a couple different ways, because there is a lot to talk about, yet at the same time, there's no talking. So, this is going to be funky. I have a lot of opinions. I'm actually like, I sat down for 5 minutes after recording the 18-minute live reaction, which you can check out over on Patreon for those who don't know. I'm only a member for so Speedruns. Check out the live reaction. But I just sat down here for like 5 minutes just thinking about this chapter, because like, I like it, but it's kind of like, there's a lot. This is a lot. But you know what? Let's not waste any more time. Let's hop right into chapter 220, The Signal to Rise Up. So we open up with a beautiful cover page of the 5 deadly freaks, because remember, the 7 deadly sins don't exist anymore. They're gone. Like, I'm not even just like talking about, oh, you know, Escanor's dead, Merlin's not here. But like, no, like, they don't even have the tattoos anymore. If you remember that, they were magical tattoos that Merlin like erased. So the 7 deadly sins don't really exist. And there's only 5 of them here. So if anything, it's the 5 deadly sins, but that doesn't at all have the same ring to it. So we're going to call them the 5 freaky fiends. 5 freaky fiends. That's what these guys are. But the 5 freaky fiends are here. And I'll admit, so you and me and everybody has kind of been waiting. We've been looking at the tick-tock of a clock. And I'm going to open up, before I actually get into the review, I'm going to open up with an idea. An idea I want to bounce off your and mine dombies. That idea is, do you think the Sins should die, or should they be removed from the narrative? Those are 2 separate things. So I'm going to repeat it one more again. Do you think the Sins should die, or be removed from the narrative? I don't even have an answer to my question that I'm laying out right now. Because once again, like I said, I've been sitting here for 5 minutes, but I still need to record, so I hopped into recording. So I'll give you an answer to that towards the end, because it's going to be relevant throughout the entire time. Alright, so just get it in your head right now. Think about it. Leave an answer right here at the start of the review if you want to, or just wait until the end, or anytime. Leave your thoughts on that. Do you want the Sins to die, or just be removed from the narrative? If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. So, hopping into the chapter itself. We open up and we get to see Thetis getting to work. Now, the first critique, quote unquote, I have with this chapter is one that I'll get into immediately. I'm going to get into immediately, and it's going to keep popping up throughout the review. First issue I have, we are moving a little too Speedy Gonzalez, right? And hey, don't get me wrong, I have lived in the, hold on, gosh darn it. Why you doing this? What? But we have been living in an interesting period of Fortnites, right? Like, when you think about it, part 2 has been like kind of a mix of pacing. It started out relatively slow. It was a nice, juicy, slow burn. We got to see where all the characters were. We had to catch up on certain characters I didn't really expect to catch up on. Remember, considering part 2 has been active for what, 2 going on 3 years at this point? I think it is on its literal 3rd year, right? I think, because part 2 started a while ago. But since we've been in this new era of part 2, we started off relatively slow. In fact, we didn't even start with characters we actually knew. We started with Boris, and went down that entire, like, introduction to Camelot arc. We saw Anne, we saw Donnie, we went through all of that. We met up with Pelgard. We had, like, a nice, good discussion. We got to figure out where all the characters were at and their headspaces. We got more lore for Pelgard, more backup for Pelgard, explain why Pelgard was. Like, we got a good, nice, meaty, fleshy elaboration on a bunch of fan-favorite characters. So, that's good. Juicy, meaty, thick, scrumbling-umptious. Then we led into the Fairy King's Forest arc. That was also, actually, I'd say a relatively healthy paced arc. Of course, we didn't get too much time with all the kids, but there were literally 7 of them, so, like, I don't blame them. We got time on the kids we needed to get time on. We had time with the respective 4 evil of that arc, just as the previous arc had a respective 4 evil, that being Pelgard. We had a 4 evil for that arc, which was World Aim. We got good elaboration on her. We get a good elaboration on her motivations, good elaboration on her species that she created. Kil'jaeden is a character who I still remember, in spite of him not having too much screen time. He was actually really well characterized, and the nature of him, he had a really cool design. And of course, we had to follow Gnostians and their family in that entire plot. And we got more explanation on Gnostians and their biology and stuff like that. Like, we were doing good in terms of the pacing there as well. I think the first 2 sections of part 2 were paced really, really well. Then we got into Percy's revival, which was also a part of that arc, which I think ultimately works really, really fine. We got a good long chunk without Percy, so we could actually feel his absence in the narrative way more than they felt with Meliodas in the original series, at least to me. I think I picked up the original series like right around when Meliodas had been revived, so I didn't really have too much time to like sit and wait for his revival, but still, I know Percy was gone longer than Meliodas was, so pacing-wise, that was also relatively fine. We got Percy back. Then we led right into the retrieval arc. And by retrieval arc, I mean the retrieval of Gawain arc and just the regathering of the Four Knights. And then I think the pacing got a little bit, like, it got really rapid for a second there, because we essentially got Percy back, had like a chapter and a half on Leonis, and we immediately met up with Gawain again. And I was like, whoa, kind of Speedy Gonzalez. But of course, we only had Four Knights, and admittedly, one of my favorite things of Four Knights is the character dynamics and character interaction, so I didn't really mind it all too much. Especially considering we had the entire Unfun Tournament arc. That was actually, in my opinion, kind of like the peak of Four Knights pacing. And you may be like, what do you mean by that? The reason I say that is because it introduced a bunch of characters. A little bunch. Think about it. We got a real proper introduction to Beltreep, who had, like, his introduction technically kind of sort of in the Pelgard arc, but we got a real proper elaboration on Beltreep and his backstory and his history. We got properly reintroduced to Dubs as a character, as a byproduct of the reuniting with Gawain. We got introduced to Balin, we got introduced to Diodora, we got introduced to Izzy, we got introduced to Tantris, and then reintroduced to the rest of the Tristan platoon. Like, a lot actually happened in that arc. It was actually a pretty chunky arc, too. But the reason I say it's the peak of pacing is because every single thing had its time. Every single idea was elaborated on, extrapolated on in a good way. Heck, remember, we were properly elaborated on with both Taurus? That's the wrong thing. It's Rothus and what's his name? Turret. I was thinking Taurus from Sagamodes, but Turret and Rothus were introduced properly, characterized properly, got introduction to their abilities. Diodor had his own arc. Like, there's a lot. Oh, and I mean a lot in the Unfun Tournament arc, but it worked because there was so much and it was so thick and it was so rich and it was so juicy. The reason why I think a lot of people were a little bit put off by the arc right before what presumably is this current arc, the Great War arc, I suppose? Not like a Holy War, but like Great War arc, is it did slow down a whole lot. Mainly because, you know, the funny thing is, it goes back into the initial issue of like how fast we're pulling the Knights back together. The second we got Tristan back, as like Tristan and not Tantris, Lancelot came back, now a couple chapters later, and wiped all the four evils. That, I think, is the start of, wait a minute, I think we're moving too fast. Because we had just amped the four evils to actually be relevant threats. Pelgar and Ironside didn't really get to properly show off their amps before they had to get amped again on top of their initial amps because our three knights were already too strong. Then Lance came in, knocked them down way too quickly. That was a pacing issue. Then we got the whole little section. We did get major plot revelations though, but notably, think about the major plot revelations in terms of their like time and how much time we got to sit in them versus what we actually got. And by that, I mean think about how fast Lance's backstory was kind of sped through. That was what, like 3 chapters? 3 chapters? I can almost, in fact, I will literally, hold on. I'm going to check right now. I'm pretty sure it wasn't even like a full 3 chapters. I think it was like chapters and a half. The whole Benwick arc was maybe 3 chapters? Hold on. Let me double check. Lance's return. Lance back in Leonis. All right. So the flashback for Lance, which is a major point of his character, right? Like it's in fact the entire foundation of his character in Four Knights. So you think we get like a good amount of time to settle in this era. The flashback starts in chapter 209, the abduction, and then the flashback ends in chapter 211. So does Lance's training, which takes place entirely off screen. And that's it. It kind of gets wrapped up real quick. And that's, once again, an idea of, oh no, I think we're moving a little bit too fast. And it doesn't stop there. It just keeps going and going and going. Because you remember that Tristan was supposed to be training with his father? Remember how we got, like, what, half a chapter of that? Hold on, let me just make sure I'm right on that. Just as I was talking about the speed of Lance's backstory. We got, I think, like, legit, half a chapter? Oh, we quickly resolved this. Speaking of, I completely forgot about this point, because it happened so fast. We completely resolved the whole Anne and Nosians thing. Remember how that was going to be, like, a major sprawling plot point? That got wrapped up. Isol and Tristan, that got wrapped up. But yeah, so we got the end of 214 being the start of the train between Tristan and Mel. Then we got another half of 214 being more train between Tristan and Mel. And then we immediately leapt into the great. So actually, I think about it, I can't even say the pacing was slow. So much was happening, but none of it's sticking because it's too quick. Too many plot things are being sped through way too quickly. I think that's honestly the main issue. Right? My initial critique was gonna be like, the plot was kind of meandering, because I remember seeing people complain a lot about like this Leona stuff. But I think it's because we're getting plot reveal to plot reveal to plot reveal to plot reveal, and we weren't really sitting in it. And even like major plot points, major things that people were excited for, such as Meliodas training with Tristan, got glazed over and then moved on from. And that's still happening. And we're moving really, really fast. And I'm not saying it's the best. I think ultimately, Meliodas and Tristan training should have been like 3 chapters. We should have gotten more. We really should have gotten more of Lance's flashback. But speaking of Lance's flashback, we should have gotten more of Lance's flashback. We should have gotten more Tristan and Mel training. We should have gotten some Elizabeth and Tristan training. We should have gotten some full family training from them. We should have seen anything of Percival. Percival just kind of hasn't even been here. He's one of the most, he's the main character, but our most mysterious character. And outside his little romance subplot with and in scenes, we actually haven't gotten much from him. We are moving at like light speed, and I think the reason it's throwing me so off guard now that I'm thinking about it even more is because there's literally no impetus from Arthur. We are throwing ourselves headfirst at a problem when we don't need to. And I think that's why Nakaba's just squeezing out plot reveal, done, character thing, just getting it done. Because I think Nakaba knows that he jacked up in terms of making Arthur too fodder and not moving, and making Lance / just our hero cast too strong. Which is why I think he's going to remove the sins from the narrative to try and balance it. And he may try to remove Lance from the narrative at the same time. That's the whole idea of Evil Lance. That's what I was talking about. Because right now, the reason we're probably moving at Mach 12 is because currently Arthur isn't a threat. Camelot isn't a threat. So we are leaping into things so quickly, but it's because apparently Tristan didn't even need that much training. He could have handled the super giga amped monstrous for evils easily. Same thing with Percival. Same thing with gawain, apparently. When all these characters should have like more time to interact with their parents or their friends, or just more time on screen in general. So that's like just a pacing thing that I want to bring up real quick, because this is the start of it. Thetis is immediately summoning back all those people that Lance gave the tassels to. And then we get to see a reveal of a character who I was kind of wondering about, and this is what I was talking about. A lot of stuff happened real quick. We sort of left certain things hanging. Diodora. They're in Leonis. Hey, this was a major plot point, Nakaba. Did they get healed by Elizabeth? Is the Demon King's poison no longer a problem? Remember, if they ever left, they're supposedly gonna die. But they seem fine here. Ballin looks good as always, but what is this box that they're giving? I don't know. There's no dialogue on this chapter. That's the thing. That's why I'm like kind of bouncing off a bunch of different ideas, because this chapter is the culmination of a bunch of stuff. But Diodora gets handed this weird chain box. Ballin, Diodora, and Gareth, all characters elaborate on in the Onfin arc. They're here. Cool to see, but once again, I don't know what's up with Diodora. I mean, I'm assuming they got healed. That was something that happened off screen, but considering that was a major plot point of the character, so it's kind of weird that we aren't really elaborating on that. We're kind of just, hey, they're here. Could have seen them way before this. Ballin being here is fine. Ballin is just following Gawain. And same thing with Dareth. Dareth's kind of just following Percy. But I'd like to see more interactions between Percy and Gareth. That'd have been neat to see. But no, we're just immediately speeding through it. And speaking of immediately speeding through it, this is a dynamic that's being set up suddenly. Izzy and Escanor and Merlin? Like, it just hit me, because I'm a stupid, dumb idiot. It just hit me. The reason Escanor is probably reaching out to Izzy is because that's his niece. Right? Like, and he's probably going to talk to her about her father, which is nice. But still, I'll actually like an actual conversation with that. Like, now it just hit me. It literally just hit me in this moment. Like, I know they're... That's my pages of memories. They're probably gonna watch the live reaction and be like, "Pencil, you stupid idiot." The reason they're interacting is because of the one who threw me off here was Merlin being here. If it was just Escanor, I'd be like, "Oh, okay, something would have clicked there." But Izzy is Escanor's niece, so that's presumably why they're talking. But would have been neat to see this established, like actually on panel, rather than or like in a conversation, or maybe an entire chapter dedicated to it, and not just 3 panels. But this is what's happening. Don't know what these characters are doing. In fact, there's another thing that I'm kind of questioning why they did it a certain way, but regardless, we see Gila running around, no lipstick, hyping up the troops. Hey, gotta do what you gotta do. None of these characters are gonna be relevant. I highly doubt we're gonna see these characters again. I'm really, really wondering like what this fight is even gonna go down like, considering how Arthur pulls up at the end of the chapter. But Gila's hyping up the troops. We see that Bors and Edlin are both nervous as they get ready. And notably, I don't blame them, especially Bors, because I don't think Bors has powers. Bors is apparently a notable knight in Arthurian mythology. Or, well, not notable, but, like, he does, like, that name is of Arthurian originality. So, like, he does something. But, like, I don't think the guy has magic yet, but he's clearly fighting on the front line, so I'm worried for that boy. Edwin, he does have magic, but he wasn't really built like that, so I'm also worried for him, too. But it's nice to see Pelio encouraging them, smacking them both on the back and getting them ready. And we get to see the 4 Knights squadrons. Very specifically, the Tristan platoon and the Percy platoon. Now, these are the new fits, presumably for a little bit. And I'm 50-50 on it. Let me go with the fit who I think is rocking it the most. Who I think is, they have the exaggerated swagger of a little young Leonis teen. I mean, like, they're all 18, so I guess this works. But the exaggerated swagger of a young Leonis teen. Donnie looks fantastic. I don't know, something about the open coat with the tunic. I'm not sure, but the full long shirt with the belt on, looking clean. The fur boots looking clean. The pants looking clean. Donnie's got it on. Loki, I'd wear that fit, but I'm not anywhere near as built as Donnie. Then, who's got it on next most? I'd say Kion's got it on next most. It's an interesting fit for him. It's honestly very casual looking. But notably, I'll admit, both Donnie and him are the only ones that look like they're going to be, like, traveling since Leave Again. Because remember, that was their mission. They're supposedly going to travel and engage with Camelot. In fact, what I can quickly do is go back to chapter 219 and show you what I'm talking about. Which is why I'm once again actually kind of confused by the state of the battle that's clearly about to go on. Hold on, let me scroll to the end of 219. Where is it? Here it is. We're about to kick off a war, folks. This is it. So, remember in 219? These are Leonis' orders for the Fortnightsoftheapocalypse. of the Apocalypse. You are to infiltrate Camelot, search for Merlin, and obtain the key that will shatter chaos for good. The mission is now hereby underway. Why are they teleporting everyone back so soon? Why are they rushing? This is my big thing about the pacing. Why are they rushing? How are they supposed to infiltrate Camelot? And you're calling everybody back, knowing that Arthur's going to immediately show up. Like, there was a whole point. This is why the Sins gathered in the first place. Why did you wait? You should have infiltrated first, gotten the key to shattering chaos first, because I guess like a big thing that's kind of brought up with the pacing being so fast and why they're in like not even just like out of universe pacing moving so fast, like a lot is happening really quick narrative wise and character wise, but also a lot is happening really fast in universe. What's the rush? I know Leonis is disappearing bit by bit, piece by piece, but like it's not like Arthur's or Carther, which they don't know at this point seemingly. It's not like Carther's eating people right now. Just leave them in there. You know he's not going to attack the Leonis directly unless you directly provoke him. So I don't know why they're directly provoking him. But sorry, we'll spin back to that later once again towards the end. I was worried this review wasn't going to be long, and obviously I'm already 17 minutes deep, so we clearly got a lot to talk about. But Kai and Loki got it on. It's a really interesting kind of mixed casual fit though. It's the least regal looking of all the fits unironically, which is weird considering Kion's like hang-ups about being regal and royal. Then I'd say Gnostians has kind of got it on her. I think the thing is, it's the pants being all white. Like, this being a full white fit doesn't work as well as Donnie being a full white fit. But I think both of these fits were just uncolored. This chapter was not completed in time, I can tell. And I think if you give this the black and you bring back the hat, I think the fits fire, like peak, part 1 callback. And that's why I kind of feel like Isolde's fit is halfway a callback too. It does remind me heavily of a part 1 fit, except the armor reminds me of someone else in Seven Deadly Sins. I forget what the character's name is, but like that armor top looks very familiar. It's nice to see her wearing the bow properly again, because you know the whole Tristan thing, even in armor. But fit's kind of just callback to part 1. It's fine enough. I wasn't really the biggest fan of a part 1 fit. I actually really preferred her part 2 Camelot fit, but still, that's fine. Anne's in a weird kind of fit. I feel like it's simultaneously over-designed up top, yet under-designed on the bottom. I mean, the heels are fine, but the skirt is kind of basic looking. Meanwhile, you have the gloves overlaid with the long sleeves, overlaid with the other seemingly armor glove extensions, plus the popped collar, plus lately, I don't know, I feel like it's doing too much. But still, I find enough fit. Overall, I'm happy the platoons are here. I'm happy they're doing well and preparing for battle, but like, I don't know. We don't, notably, a thing I do want to point out, we don't see the Four Knights at all this chapter. Not a single one of them makes a single appearance this chapter. So maybe they did infiltrate Camelot by themselves and left their platoons here, but that doesn't really make sense. Then we get a nice little scene of Slater, Elizabeth, and Bartra hanging out. Now, this once again brings me the question of why did you bring them all here? But Elizabeth being with Bartra is interesting. We do know for a fact that there is a or not for a fact, right? The alternate timeline or possible future. In fact, what I'll do is, I believe I pointed out it was exactly 100 chapters ago, or 80 chapters ago, right? It was 80 chapters ago, so it'd be 119, right? 119? Nope, not 119. Clearly not 119. Is that not 80? That's not 80. I think I'm stupid. I think it's 129. 129? Yeah. Notably, though, I can already tell that it's not going to be the exact 1-to-1 because Arthur's in a completely different. Hold on, is he in a completely different fit? Yep, he's in a completely different fit. So it's not going to be an exact 1-to-1 of the flashback, right? In fact, Diane's in a completely different fit. I think is Diane in a completely different fit? It seemed like it could be the same fit. It seemed like it could be the same fit. I think it may be the same fit, but specifically, chapter 129. Oh, chapter 129. Where is it? Where is it? What was I looking for? What on earth are they looking for? Kath being in the same fit, but what was there was a specific point I want to bring up about the future. Oh, the thing I want to bring up. Whoop. I'll close that for now. I was during the live reaction. I was very confused on why the chapter had no text, so I literally read to the Reddit real quick. But the question I was wondering is why did they teleport all of them to Leonis, which was going to quickly become an active battleground? I don't get that move either. But no, here it is. The reason I want to call back to Elizabeth specifically. This massive goddess burst of seemingly light magic, which presumably, considering it's at 8 wings, this reminds me of, or not, it's not even 8 wings. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it's 10 wings. So these 10 wings, that's only been associated with Elizabeth and the Supreme Deity. Tristan's never been implied to be on that level just yet. So Elizabeth being with Bartra is interesting, considering she presumably makes some sort of possible sacrifice play here. Though clearly it's not enough to save Bond, who we'll talk about in a second. But you see with Bartra, I like all 3 of these characters. There aren't any of my favorites, but they're all fine, solid characters. Then we see Thetis completely cast a spell. Remember, Thetis is Derriere using her fully actualized magic potential, considering her physical body cannot handle combo stars it used to. But with it being the case, we cut over to Camelot, and we see everyone celebrating, everyone's looking cool, everyone's looking happy. Arthur's just running around, making sure morale is high. We see the 4 evils with him, still presumably just chaos meat puppets, not actually people anymore. And we see Arthur happy, smiling. And then we see Arthur specifically look down on a certain individual. This is Elva. If you remember all the way back from start of part 1, we saw Cats 2 chapters ago, I do believe. But now we have Elva, the other part of the little traveling mini circus that Donnie was a part of. And her individual, since Cats is presumably already here, and I'm not sure if she has a family otherwise, is Donnie. Of course, it's pre-time skip Donnie, because that's the last time she saw him. If you'll remember, at the start of the series, Donnie was literally teleported away by Lance. Like, that was just, he was hard removed from her life. So it is sweet to see that she still does remember and care for Donnie enough to manifest him in Camelot with her. It's very, very sweet, very, very adorable. But, of course, considering she is wearing one of the many charms that Arthur just never noticed, she immediately gets teleported away once Thetis completes the spell. And she's not the only one. Multiple people get teleported away. And naturally, as a byproduct, the many illusions of Camelot get absolutely annihilated with them, showing that even if they still have their wishes, it truly is a stay in Camelot, be in Camelot. If you leave Camelot, then your illusion dies. And not just your illusion, but the very foundation of Camelot itself begins to die. We see all the different people get teleported out, from husbands to mothers to all that, and then the people that they wished for also get warped away. And we see Carther hit this crazy face of, what is happening? As everything falls apart around him. And by everything, I do mean everything. As we see, even the ground itself gives way and buckles underneath Arthur and leaves him essentially floating in the remnants of a void, right? Presumably these are the only actual real pieces of Leonis that he stole, and everything else is illusion built on the hopes and wishes of people that could live in this weird void space. And naturally, if there's any way to rage bait Carther, this would be it. And he immediately freaks out, geeks out, and transforms mostly into his Carther form. But of course, Carther form, he still does have the cowlick. He still is not the Cav we knew from the end of the original series. He's basically a not completely different character, but he is a different character. So that is interesting enough to see. However, this once again raises the question of why Carther is so limited if he supposedly has so much of chaos, right? Like, as there English, as much of a possibility as there is that Carther could just be weak, or no, chaos could just be weaker than his creations. Like, it could be weaker than the Lady of the Lake, because the Demon King did create Meliodas, who ended up being stronger than him. So, like, it is possible. We know the fairy tree presumably is weaker than its fairy kings, or it's at least definitely weaker than the fairy king, the current fairy king. So it may just be a case where chaos creates something stronger than it in the Lady of the Lake. But with Carther having so much of chaos, it actually is kind of crazy to see that he really can't maintain the realm. I thought of anything that was like lies and propaganda and just Cath maybe feeding his like base primordial hunger. No, if the people are gone, Camelot disappears too. So yeah, Carther, you're kind of a bum. If anything, I had to assume the piece of chaos that allows like permanence of structures, if you will, kind of like how we know the mortal universe was created by chaos. We know the demon realm was created by the demon king. We know the celestial realm was created by the supreme deity. All that. I'm assuming the piece of creation that allows creation to be stable is like still stored in Arthur, right? Like that's just there. And that's why Cath can't do it. Because otherwise, it doesn't really make sense how Chaos was able to create the entire universe. Possibly depending on what. Like, I think there's like some Seven Deadly Sins origin upscale. Like, the entire multiverse Chaos is apparently responsible for. But, like, can't maintain some land masses? What? So, that is a pretty crazy thing to see here. But it is nice to see Carther tweak out. But still, I don't know why they rage baited him. They had so much time. He was in no rush. He was very baby man. He wasn't even pressing his wife, quote unquote, in order to give him some information. He literally just stood there and took it like a good boy. So, I don't get why we're agitating him. But, speaking of agitation, we see Elva is back in Leonis. And we see that Derriere / Thetis is completely out of strength, so she collapses. And we see Hauser begin to gather people around. And we see Bond look on with a smile, and Meliodas looks on with a look of sheer worry and concern as he realizes, wait, maybe we shouldn't fast-track this so much. And Gother, and Diane, and King all stare up at the King of Chaos appearing through a portal with the four evils. Everyone's aura farming, Beltreep and Ironside both aura farming, Arthur aura farming and walking on air, Worldane and Pelgard aura farming themselves, and the chapter ends with Arthur versus Meliodas being set up as the main core foundational battle, which will seemingly eventually lead to this point, presumably, considering this is the exact same lineup. But, all that being the case, you saw how I kind of picked the pace of the chapter, it's because I'm still not the most sure how to feel about it. Here's the thing. I'll give this now. The chapter's definitely worthy. I don't think I can pretend to play hopscotch or patty cake around that. The chapter's definitely worthy. I think it is worthy for... It's worthy for the fact that it is, building up everything. Right? Like, this is the big bad battle that's kind of been hyped up since the beginning of the series. Everybody knew Arthur went evil. We've kind of been waiting for this fight, right? It's why even in the 129 flashback, he says, the day when... Oh no, how long have we waited for this day, the day I can finally end things with you, Seven Deadly Sins? He doesn't even call them Seven Deadly Sins, just Deadly Sins. So, he has been waiting for this. I just was expecting it to be under different circumstances. But, the chapter itself... I think this is a case where I'm going to have to separate my, this is going to be... There are two wolves fighting inside me. There's gonna be the part of me that wants to get on this chapter's case for, not really making sense, considering, they didn't really have any external pressure to do this. They kind of just leapt right into it when Tristan could have used more training. Percy possibly could have used more training. Gawain definitely could have used more training. But, at the same time, this chapter is very vague. I don't know how long it's been. I really don't. And considering the nature of 129, Lance probably has a sacred treasure to the other ones. And by other ones, I mean just Tristan and Gawain. Do they have proper sacred treasures now? Is Gawain still wielding Lita? Where are the knights in this context? We know that Lance has to end up being here in order to, this to his daddy. But with that being the case, I don't know. We're in an interesting spot, in a weird spot. I think the pacing is way too fast. That's not a critique I'm going to take back. I think we could have definitely used more training. We could have definitely used more character interactions. We could definitely use more elaboration, just in general, more everything. But if we're picking the pace up, this once again only super. I can't Frankie's voice, but it super reinforces to me the idea that Arthur / Carther isn't the final villain, mainly because I don't see Fortnite being that short, right? Sure, Fortnite is well over 200 chapters long, but not only do I doubt it's getting axed, but also it's way shorter than the original, which I don't think it would be. And I'm not saying that the Sins here are going to defeat Arthur or anything, or the Knights here are going to defeat Arthur, but I don't know. I feel like the story, other than Lance saying, it's time to kick off a war, folks, last chapter, the story didn't really give me an impetus to believe that, yeah, we gotta go fight now. I don't think the seriousness of Arthur as a threat hasn't really been laid out. I'm assuming that's what this battle is for, to really show us how powerful Arthur and the four evils now truly are, with nothing held back, I suppose? I'm guessing. Probably. But all that being the case, let me go all the way back to the question I asked at the start of this video. Do you think the Seven Deadly Sins should die or be removed from the narrative? Ultimately, when they thinking about it and talking about the chapter as they have, I I'm probably smelling a narrative removal. Probably. And the reason I say that is because we haven't gotten enough of them. And maybe like, well, this is a sequel series, Pennsylvania. You don't really get too much of the main characters of the previous series. And that's true, but Merlin is still also a major plot point. So, like, there's that. Then, of course, I'm trying to think. It is just Merlin, right? Because Escobar's already dead. But still, Merlin is a major plot point. As someone pointed out, the Coffin of Eternal Darkness still technically was a thing, but I don't think it's going to be used. I feel like Nakaba completely forgot about that. So there is a lot of questions, but I don't think the sins are going to get permanently removed from the narrative as in slaughtered, and I don't think that Arthur will do it. I think there's going to be some case where Evil Lance comes in, seemingly stabs Bond, but it was all a trick. It was all a dream, or something like that, and it doesn't actually matter all too much. I don't know. It's a weird thing. This is a weird chapter. No dialogue, whole bunch happening, weird elaborations, whole bunch of stuff. But overall, a W chapter. If you don't like seeing this video, please leave. I guess we'll start now. In the comment section down below. I want to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that link to notifications so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, you can have a page down below. You support me for as low as $1 a month. You think exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So let's conclude the 18-minute live reaction to this very review, or to this very chapter. Ad-free variations of all my videos, early ad-free access to all my videos, early ad-free access on top of your name at the end of literally every single video I ever produce. And if you're a $3 member or higher, you get your name listed and read aloud at the end of every single video I ever produce. And on top of that, if you want to drop 5 minutes to a short video or 20 minutes to a long video, anything that all any support is always greatly appreciated. The link to my Ko-Fi is in the description down below. And I want to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That of the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our sketch tier members: Eternal Flame, Red Wolf 4765, Astro, Glacier XZ, Zera, Brandon Payne, J2MA, Guillaume, Pura Ura, Enzo, Yuki Ally, Grim, Ollie, Davoy, Corey Watson, Damon Brown, Magic, CCC, Rondo Furen, Dino, Hector Gonzalez, Tim Thomas, Kaving, Julian Perez, Akolade Babatunde, Union I, RXN, Nevis97, Logan Guzman, Dead Meme, Karu Deer, Christian Carter, Keon Stewart, Donovan McIntyre, Sino King, Hamza the DC, VNA DNA, Edwin Igbinova, Straw, Athenzi Shear, Antavius Mitchell, Azo2404, Superflame Zero, Weary Exile, Karina Hernandez, Sheesh King, Window Life, Alex Kenny, Victor Jacobs, Todd, Dre, Axis XE, The Practical One, Aswin Hedi Prasetya, JMD Katie, Devi Pesiet, Landon Clapwick, Heath Nelson, CAET, Funny Dude, Jagoda, Plant Crone, and Striker Man. Then, I'd like to give a thank you to our line or tier patrons: A+A, Kevin Encarnacion, Sean, Dreadzone, Midnight Lord 21, and CJ. Then, I'd like to give a thank you to our Ink tier members: King RTX and Triple the Fourth Shrimp 06, along with Zom. I'd like to give another thank you to our digital art tier members: J Warrior and AZ Void. And I'd like to give a final thank you to our colored art tier patrons: Joaquin Munoz and Joaquin Munoz.